Your emotional life is powerful. In fact, your emotions are actually very powerful tools for communication, for empathy, for kindness, for creativity, and for connection to yourself and to others. It also seems to have a great deal to do with the sixth sense, that is, communicating interdimensionally, we might say, which for some of you sounds incredibly odd and weird, but we nonetheless must pay attention to all of the different powerful tools that emotions bring to you. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the complications that emotions can bring to you. Well, this is Dr. Carol Francis, and I am so glad you're joining this moment to think about your feelings and to think about their power and also think about the way in which they trip you up. The primary way in which emotions trip up is when they're not integrated with the rest of the wonderful tools that you have. For example, when you have emotions that do not know how to communicate to your intellect, or to the knowledge that you have accumulated, or to your wisdom, or you have emotions that are reactive to traumas of all sorts of different natures and degrees, then your emotions may be wired into your brain to be reactive as opposed to communicative. Now, reactive emotions are very helpful initially because it helps you know whether or not you need to fight, flight, or freeze in a moment of danger, so that you will know whether or not you need to fight off a predator, whether you need to fight off someone who's abusive, whether you need to fly away and get away for your own well-being or the well-being of those whom you are protecting, or you need to freeze and be very still as if you don't exist and blend in with the wallpaper surrounding you so that no one really actually pays attention to you. And these three responses to deep, intense emotions of panic and fear, worry, and anxiety are wonderful reactions in a moment of a trauma where it's all about surviving and helping those around you survive. But afterward, the residual impact of having these triggered in you when there's really actually no trauma is very confusing. Yes, you will need to work out the impact that trauma has on you so that those don't become trigger points, and also so that your emotions can continue to be viable and valuable tools for a dynamic life that you want to live. And you'll want to work those through in any number of ways. And the ways in which I do it with individuals usually involves long-term psychoanalytic psychotherapy or long-term talk therapy combined with hypnotherapy. And then, of course, the short-term approaches through cognitive behavioral and EMDR and things of that sort. So there's approaches that are short-term and some that are long-term. And what we find out is that the quicker an individual comes in for treatment of any form, whether it's through medication, psychotherapy, yoga, meditation, any of these brain entrainment type experiences, the quicker you do it, the least amount of triggering you will have ongoing. Because guess what happens? When something else triggers those exact same reactions inside of you, whether it's a similar trauma or a really small trauma or not a trauma at all, that trigger in your brain wires it even deeper. It's like grooving something into you, or like if you had a wheel going around and round and round on some sort of dirt, you would create a groove in the soil and it would go deeper and deeper, deeper the more the wheel went around. So the idea is that you want to intervene as quickly as you can so that it doesn't groove any deeper into your brain than it needs to. The more severe the trauma and the more powerless you felt usually means that it grooves in pretty deeply and pretty intensely. And the more chronic, like over a lot of period of time, like molestations that go on for years, or rapes that happen more than once, these type of traumas, including soldiers who have been in the front lines and it's a life and death situation for themselves and their buddies, these type of traumas that go over and over and over also dig very deep traumatic grooves into the brain. And it's really wise, as soon as you possibly can, to work those through, to minimize them, to learn a whole new way of responding to your emotions. We'll talk more in another video about how to recover from traumatic events that lead to the confusion of your emotions, but let's spend the rest of this time talking about the tools of your emotions. A lot of times, individuals have thought that it's our knowledge and our cognition, it's our empirical reasoning that is actually what is valuable for understanding what's going on in the world. But actually, that is an imbalance. In other words, you'll only see a portion of what information is available to you, and you'll only have a portion of the tools that exist inside of you. And so while a portion is better than nothing, it isn't as realistic as having the whole package of who you are. And part of who you are is your emotions. Now, there are different types of emotional responses, and one of which are that of empathy. And this ability to mirror what another person is experiencing, what another person is going through, what another person is feeling, and what another person is doing is actually a power tool that enables you to learn, number one, what another person is doing. Therefore, you can learn from that other person, use them as a kind of a mentor. But it also enables you to communicate, because without the ability to empathize or to mirror, you can't really understand what another individual whom you love or you'd like to connect to is actually trying to convey to you. You might hear their words and you might hear their actions, but if you can't resonate with the emotions that they are generating in an authentic, congruent way, what that means is that what they are feeling is actually what's stirred inside of you at the same time. That type of matching is a very valuable tool for being able to have a really positive, romantic, emotional, friendship, or even a work rapport type situation. So rapport is amazingly important, and you only have that through an emotional aspect of your communication. So just imagine the power of being able to bring into any sort of connection, any sort of communication, both the ability to articulate who you are, what you're about, and what you're feeling, and also be able to comprehend what a person is saying to you verbally and non-verbally. Now, be very aware that when emotions get triggered and they get skewed, much like your perceptive abilities, your ability to see and comprehend and to interpret, when they get confused, you cannot interpret a situation accurately based on what you think is going on. Your interpretation will be off, and in which case, your communication skills will be off as well. Okay, with that as an introduction of our part one about the emotional tools you have that are able to really empower your ability to be creative, energetic, energized, and emotionally connected to others, we are going to go to part two, which will give you even more clues as to how to use these powerful tools you have called emotions. Cheers, bye.